It's really a joy to be back here with all of you and to share in this Sunday service on the topic of perception of inner truth. I'd like to start with a very brief reading from Autobiography of a Yogi. This is about inner perception and how one communicates in the astral and causal realms. It's very brief. Communication among the astral inhabitants is held entirely by astral telepathy and television, not the television that we know of. There is none of the confusion and misunderstanding of the written and spoken word which earth dwellers must endure. And another short quote. This is when Master was Swami Sri Yukteswarji. He says, "My mind was now in such perfect attunement with my gurus that he was conveying his word pictures to me, partly by speech and partly by thought transference. I was thus quickly receiving his idea tabloids." Very beautiful, huh? This is an important topic on inner perception of truth. We think that we know truth, we learn truth, we read about it, and suddenly we're wise. Or we go to school and suddenly we're wise and we know truth. But truth is something that is inherent in every soul. Everyone has it, can perceive it, can know it, but it's not a given. When I read Autobiography of a Yogi, the book I just was reading from, for the first time, I read many wondrous things, as you all have. If you haven't read that book, I would say get it today if you can from the boutique. But I saw Yoganandaji's picture first, and I don't know anything about gurus and India and all these various things and reincarnation and various things. But I looked at his picture and I said, he looks true. And then I began to read, and I saw the pictures of the yogis and the saints and the masters in that book. And I was sitting in Los Angeles, that's where I was born, and I was just marveling. And I read about the levitating saint, and whoa, that was big. And and Ananda, the saint who had two bodies, and Giribala, of course there was the Tiger Swami. That was amazing. And then there was Giribala, and she hadn't eaten for 56 years, and Teresa Neumann, and I just loved it. I didn't understand it. It wasn't on a mental level. But something inside of me said, this is truth. Then I went to Ananda, and I met Swami Kriyanandaji, and here we were all, Westerners, as you would say, but Indians really, in Western bodies. And so there we were, and Swamiji had a harmonium, and he would play wonderful chants, and he had a big tanpura, and he would play that, and I just said, wow, this is so familiar. And then he would speak. And his talks would be sometimes a couple of hours, and you were just going, wow. I mean, they were going way over my head. I mean, all these concepts and deep philosophy, but I thought, that's truth. Even if I couldn't understand it all yet, I was absorbing, like Master was saying, he was absorbing from his guru. I was absorbing. And then I began to do the practices, and I did yoga postures, and I got a harmonium, and I started chanting, and I did energization, and everything that we do here. I began to do Hong Sa and Om, and it wasn't even like I did them well. You understand? But I said, this is truth. It was from my soul that I recognized truth. And that's how I started the path, and I said, I'm just going to follow one step at a time what I feel is truth. And I was watching a very beautiful film called Apparition Hill. You can Google it and watch if you like, but it's about earlier on in Medjugorje and Garbandal, also in Fatima and Lourdes, there were little children who had visions of the form of Divine Mother. And so now those children, now they're adults, and some of them are still having these visions. So the film shows, it's a wonderful film altogether, but it shows a couple of them that have grown up, and it shows their visions and how they were just enwrapped and focused up, eyes were up, and just went for a few minutes, but just in communication with God. Very uplifting, and something that we all have inside of ourselves. We have to access that, but that direct dialogue. And when you see the faces of the two that they show, you have to know they're seeing her. Just from the face, from the glow, from the complete concentration and focus and upliftment. And everyone around there in Medjugorje, this is where this film is taking place, everyone is uplifted. The Divine Mother tells different things, and afterwards she tells, someone who's writing them down, and many of those prophecies have come true. And everyone there is uplifted in the truth that she experiences, that she hears, that she feels. When last night Ashaji came to Gurgaon, and we had a wonderful, like you all have been having some wonderful times. Wonderful. It was so uplifting. I rode with her there and came with her back, and I realized that she was a channel for Master, for Swamiji, for our teachings, and she was a channel for deep truths. And what we discussed was the whole room was just in an aura of light, and the whole room seemed to be just levitating. It was so uplifting when you sit with somebody and are with them who've been living these truths, meditating, serving. It's very uplifting. And many of us, I'm looking out at many of you who were at Ananda village it wasn't that long ago. It seems like it was long ago, but it was just maybe a month or something ago, a little bit over. And that vibration there, the temple and all, and many people, I realized later, it took me a while, that we are celebrating surely the years of Ananda, but are we not celebrating the people who've been here those 50 years? Isn't it? Who've been here all those decades, serving and sharing and living in the truth. 50 years is a long time. You're trying to live your life in accordance with God, with the gurus. You're meditating every day, energizing, chanting, doing the yoga, doing the seva, whatever the things are, but the whole community is uplifted because of that. And we experienced a week of that. Those of us who went to visit, including myself and Dayan Keshavaji, but we were, and all of you, you could just feel. I came away from there and I thought, this must be what it's like in the astral realms. You don't have to talk much. And whatever anybody's saying is just uplifting people The choir is just uplifting people in the truth. The kirtan's uplifting people. The arti, the puja, everything is just, it's just uplifting the people to be in attunement. And imagine, that's why we have these places. So we can all, if it's Ananda village, if it's here, if it's wherever we go, this is why we go on pilgrimage. Because of the vibrations there that have been left of truth. Isn't it? We tap into that. This is what darshan is. You go to a saint and you just feel uplifted in that inner attunement with truth. And when we, here at Ananda, when we do our classes and everything, we always talk about here, keep your mind up, isn't it? Don't let your energy go out to all these things. If you meditate every day, your mind will naturally be drawn more inward. Isn't it true? Think about a wonderful kirtan or the Kriya ceremony or whatever. After that, you leave here, do you feel like, shouting at somebody or being angry or upset? I'm upset and I'm worried and I'm doubtful and I'm fearful. No, you're just walking in the truth. You're so uplifted. And so this is why we say in Hangsa and Om and all the practices, and this is why we bless here, for the most part, to remind ourselves, don't look at the movie out there. It's a nightmare. It's a horror film. If you can, Master said, look to the beam within. Don't look at the movie, but look at the projector, the light streaming out of the projector. And that's why we bless here. That's why we look here. That's why the Kriya blessings here. That's why in India people put the bindi here. Because we've got to remember that this is our home. This is where we can uplift ourselves in that light and in the truth. Now, there are levels of awareness. We know subconscious is a dreamy, sleepy state of awareness. We have all these levels within us. We have the conscious we're working on now, every day, and action-oriented. But then there's a wonderful state. And artists and teachers and people who are creative, inspired in any way, musicians. I'm just listening to the tabla. I just thought, this is wonderful. I just feel it's just so uplifting. The chanting is so uplifting. You just feel lifted up in the light. And so all of these, they come from a super conscious level. We weren't consciously looking around, playing tabla, Nobody, everybody's gone. You're in the super conscious level, meaning the level of joy, the level of wisdom, the level where the gurus are, the level where they meet us at least, the level where God meets us, the level of inspiration, of ideas, of expansion, of breaking out of the body. It's just a wonderful level to be on. And there is the level of truth. You can't get it in a worried state, fearful, doubtful. It just leaves you. So the yogi keeps the awareness upward in that consciousness. And there are many examples and stories that I found of just in everyday life of communication on that level and openness and receptivity on that level of super consciousness. There's, we know of Luther Burbank and George Washington Carver, that they communicated with nature, with the plants. They heard from the plants, they talked to the plants, and we have to appreciate that instead of, no, it's all logic, but they just were there. And I read a beautiful story of Master when he had a rose devotee. Because rose devotee. So he was in his study, and there was a rose there on wherever the mantle, and so someone came to the door, so he goes to the door, and the rose turns, looks at him, and it was a sister, one of the nuns was there, and then she said, then he came back and sat down, and she noticed the rose went over there, and she said, this couldn't be true. Then she said, and he went back over there, the rose goes over there, and it goes back, and she says, Master, you have a rose devotee. Because nature responds. High vibrations, high thoughts, high energy, purity, nature responds. And I have a plant at home that it should be going this way and out, but I have a big picture of Master on the mantle, and the plant is like, I'm not going to look out there, I want to look at him. It's just very sweet to see. It's all around us. And a wonderful book some of you may like to read is called, I can't go into this much because I don't have much time, but you read it if you're interested in this kind of thing. The Elephant Whisperer. Have you read that? Some of you. He talks to the elephants, a rogue herd of elephants, and completely calms them down. Whenever he goes for a long trip, he comes back, they're standing there at the gate waiting. When this man passed away, they all came. Very beautiful about just how inwardly we need to be open and receptive and feel all around you that God's light and truth is everywhere. And of course, Master he was demonstrative on this in every way, wasn't he? Remember when he was coming over on the city of Sparta ship to America, from India to America. And I have something to say about that later, but I can't say it now. But anyway, he was asked to give a talk. Now, he was just knew that God would help him. I mean, it wasn't that he felt a little uncomfortable about it, but the other people on the ship asked him to, they saw he was a Swami. He must have had on the Swami robes. And they said, oh, Swamiji, would you give us a talk on the battle of life? He said, yes. He said, I was battling myself. He gives the talk. First, everybody's laughing at him because he can't get the words out, and he said they were like laughter bombs. But then he kept inwardly, I just got to get it out. And he keeps praying to his guru. And he hears inside his guru saying, you can, speak. And he just starts talking. Now, he didn't know English hardly at all, at least not well. He said he didn't even know what he said yet. What did I say? But he spoke. That came through him. And also he said that he knew all the thoughts of everybody, everywhere. All the disciples and others, and the hamburger story. So the guy, John Collier, was his name? James Collier. The Master caught him. He went and ate hamburgers, and Master had told them, don't eat meat. They were vegetarians. So he comes back, Master said, I told you. And he says, don't. If there's nowhere to eat, don't eat. And he says, how did you know? He says, I know. And he demonstrated to Swamiji. He knew. And he told one person, you have a sour taste in your mouth. I said, how do you know that? He says, I'm just as much in you as I am in myself. Isn't that amazing? And he demonstrated this in his whole life, that's how he lived. And also, he demonstrated it with, he was talking about Encinitas, I think it was. And there were he demonstrated this with just leading other people into that aspect of truth. And so there was one time when some fishermen had come. You all went to Encinitas, didn't you? Yeah. Some fishermen had come back, and the boat was empty. And he says, oh, what happened? I said, no fish. And he says, oh, really? You had to just love how he lived. He just was so sure about God's presence. And people doubt so much. It's because of the energy level, the upliftment, the focus, the calling. He said, call it the spiritual eye. Feel in your heart. Then go about your day, your activity. Feel and then take the next step. He told Dr. Lewis, if you're in Om, nothing, everything will help you and nothing will be an obstacle. Dr. Lewis is out sailing and then he comes back and he's almost capsized the boat and he's wondering what to do. I mean, who doesn't get into situations where you're just wondering what to do? Doctor looks here, he feels the presence of God. He feels he's going to be okay. He gets back safely. And Master said, oh, doctor, you almost got wet. He could feel that divine presence. And from that, he could uplift himself. And so, anyway, with the fishermen, so they come back. He says, go out again. Now that's called Swami's Beach, So he says, now go back. And he was never for, I can't do it, I don't know how, What am I going to do? He says, go back. And they go back, and they come back with a huge haul. So these are beautiful stories. And there, then he had the disciple, Mr. Black. He even changes the universe. He changes the weather. Says Mr. Black comes and Master, it's pouring down rain, like monsoon type rain, and he's in there, and then someone knocks on the door and says, Master wants to go for a car ride. Car ride? He's wondering, we're not going to see anything. So he says he puts his coat and gets the umbrella, walks out the door, and the sun is shining. There's no rain anywhere. The ground is dry. And Master's over there. For you, Oliver. He just wanted to show us that if you live in attunement, uplifted in God consciousness, you call, when you're in a dilemma, call to God, feel the presence, take the next steps, and, we have all the tools we need. With the yoga, the energization, the chanting, the meditation, the satsang, the silence, the seclusion, all these things help us to stay in attunement here. And when we stay in attunement there, that's when we know the truth. And as it says in the Bible, and ye shall know the truth. I love the second line, and the truth shall make you free. We have the power to know that truth. Let's stay in attunement that way. As Master said, it was in the answer, he says, some of you will fall, but it doesn't have to be if. You just stay in tune. God bless you.